Hi all. I know I haven't done a live in like a few days, but I just wanted to do a live about my past two podcasts actually. So in particularly the one that I did yesterday, the one that was posted yesterday, which was on religious trauma. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, as I'm trying to keep the podcast down to just 30 minutes, just half an hour listening. I don't know if that's the right kind of duration, but we're testing it out for now. But I just want to speak a little bit about religious trauma. So shortly after I posted that podcast about religious trauma, somebody actually sent me another video of a cult trying to make themselves out to be a church. And this is very key. I think we need to be approaching these establishments with that eye of, is this a cult, or is this abusive, or is this exploitative, that kind of thing, instead of just going in there blindly thinking, yes, I'm going in there to, raise holy hands and, praise the Lord or whatever, right? We need to be approaching these institutions thinking, I am looking out for abusive behavior. I am looking out for red flags kind of thing. Because as you would, kind of approach the dating situation with, okay, I don't really like that about this person. I don't really like that kind of thing. Looking for those red flags. I think you should be approaching institutions like religious settings. With caution. Because you could get your fingers burnt going there. Or even worse, have your soul uprooted, like mine was. So anyway, I was just talking back to the video that this person sent me. So this person sent me a video of this cult posing as a church, and they were called Spac Nation, which some of you may have heard about or not heard about. And what these alleged pastors in that Spac Nation church was doing was literally coercing its members, young members who are very vulnerable, have taken them off the streets and things like that, brought them into their houses, because they had like these safe houses. I think it was like funded by the government as well, to kind of get the kids off the streets and, look after them and say, we'll look after all these kids and we'll bring them into our houses, get them, friendly with God or whatever, and we'll look after them basically. So they're receiving like, government kind of help for, charity. They're setting themselves up as a charity. But what they were actually doing was coercing these members to actually take out loans. Yeah. Loans to sow a seed in the church. Now, I believe that if you want to give to charity, good. If you have it, give to charity. If you want to sow a seed in your religious, your temple or your mosque or whatever, your church, what have you, sow a seed, put a tithe or offering, whatever you want to do. That's you. You want to help to build that community. Fine. But what I don't believe in is coercing people that do not have money. Okay, people can barely feed their children, but you are telling them that if they sow a seed, if they give £300, £500, or even worse in this particular situation, take out a loan. Take out a loan. If you can't afford it, take out a loan. We will be your guarantors, which obviously they're going to default on, which obviously in turn is going to fall back on you. And your credit rating is going to be affected because you took out the loan, right? So they were getting people to take out loans. And these are really young people. I'm talking like 15, 16, 17, 18, getting these people to take out loans just to put, as an offering kind of thing. And I thought that was really, really, really disgusting. So like I was saying in the podcast, if you haven't already watched it, what I was saying is that people can be traumatized by religion. It sounds crazy to people who have never come across that term before, but you can actually be traumatized by religion. Wow. I I had somebody on one of my posts yesterday saying that, you know, if something is going wrong in your particular church, all you need to do is move church, kind of thing. That doesn't solve the problem. It's like saying somebody suffering with anorexia should just go and eat a couple of hamburgers. That's not going to solve the anorexia, you know. The problem in their mind that is causing them to starve or even overeat, and you know, somebody maybe suffering with bulimia as well. Okay, just stop eating, just stop throwing up. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem is in the mind. And that's why I think if you have been traumatized by religion, it's not going to solve the problem by just moving on to another church. You are traumatized. Okay, just like I was traumatized by religion, and I don't want to go back. I don't, at the end of the day, because I see all of the abuse that is happening inside those institutions, and I don't want anything to do with it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go on and start hopping around and looking for a non-abusive environment, because a lot of them are abusive. Now, what I said to this particular person on my post is, jumping church is not going to solve the problem. The problem is with the people. The fact that the people already believe, the fact that these people already have this kind of notion of faith in their head, you know, like let's take the example of the bank loan situation. They can coerce those young people to take out those loans, because in those young people's minds, it actually makes sense. Or it might not make sense, because obviously your intuition is probably screaming at you saying, no, don't do it. But you think, oh, you know, I respect these people. They're pastors, they're men of God or whatever. Maybe I should just do it, because, you know, those are the people that are meant to be counseling you. Those are the people that are meant to be taking care of you. So why wouldn't you trust them, kind of thing? But obviously, wolves in sheep's clothing. So you might have alarm bells ringing, like, you know what, you know, yeah, exactly, you know, the church, do as we say, not as we do, kind of thing. So they'll get you to do these things, take out loans, do all of this, and God is gonna do something in your life. You just watch, you just give that £300. I went to a church that used to tell people not to pay their house rent, okay? Don't pay your house rent this month. Don't pay your gas bill. You use that money, put it on the altar, use it as a seed or a tithe or an offering or whatever, and you'll see how God is going to bless you. Whatever you put down here, oh, God is going to double it by next week. And that is abusive. I'm sorry. If you've continuously put in, you know, you've taken out loans and you've not paid your house rent. Now, you know, the council's knocking on your door saying, you know what, you haven't paid your house rent. We're coming for you. Are you going to sleep in the pastor's house when they kick you out? You know? So these kind of things do not make sense. But in the believer's head, it might make sense. So you're more easily coerced when you feel that you need to be there. This is the thing. And this is the kind of abuse. You can be abused from literally a child, okay, with religious trauma, because they have drummed into your head that if you don't do this, if you don't do that, if you don't follow these rules, you're going to hell. Likewise, if you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that, you know, all the 10 commandments and everything below, right? Or forget about all of that, because that's actually documented. Just things that this religious leader is telling you, if you don't do this, this and this, or if you do this, this and this, you're going to hell. Either way, you're going to hell, okay? There is a very thin line for you to walk before you go to hell. And for a child, I mean, a child mind is so simple. It's so black and white. They can't understand everything in between. You know, you're telling a child you're going to hell. That is traumatizing. That's traumatizing in itself. You don't have to say much more. It's living its life with everything, putting themselves on the back burner. Like, my life isn't actually important. My views are not important. My intuition is not important. Those alarm bells ringing off inside me, telling me this is wrong. This is a wrong situation to be in. That doesn't matter, because your only view is at what God thinks of you. You know, this is what acceptable behavior is. This is the behavior that's going to get me into heaven. This is the behavior that's going to help me to escape from hell, you know? So I might even do things in my life that's detrimental to my own self, because all I'm trying to do is impress this God. I don't care about myself. I will lay my life down and I will do everything that's there. And this is how you get people that do suicide bombings, because they so much believe that they're doing it for the greater good. They're doing it for their religion. They're doing it for Allah, right? They believe so much that they're doing it for Allah that they will actually terminate themselves. They'll actually terminate themselves on this earth for Allah. Okay? Now, another thing that I wanted to also raise was, just going a little bit back into like when I kind of left religion. Yeah. I think religious people are almost taught. A lot of religious people are abused anyway, hands down. You might not really believe that you're being abused, but your mind is being abused, psychologically abused. A lot of religious people, whether you want to believe me or not, that's my opinion. You're psychologically abused, yeah? And then on top of you being psychologically abused, you are also taught to psychologically abuse others. You are taught to abuse other people by shaming people, by making people feel guilty, making people feel unworthy, making people feel less than. That's how you are taught to do with it. Oh, okay, that person's not a believer. I can't make friends with invalids. I can't be friends with people who are not a part of the same cult as me. Or I can't be friends with Muslims because I'm a Christian. Or I can't be friends with Jewish people because I'm a Muslim. Or vice versa. You're taught to hate another person. How is that humanity? Because as far as I'm concerned, we all have two lungs. We all have one heart. We all have two nostrils, okay? We're all the same. So how are we being taught to separate ourselves from everybody else and have this kind of us and them attitude? Us and them all the time, So you most definitely can be traumatized by religion, because if you have been burnt a few times by religion, why would you go back? I don't understand. It's not going to solve the problem by moving to another institution. You haven't solved the problem. The problem is in your mind, your traumatized mind. That's the problem, I also came across another post by a guy, and he was like, giving like sound advice on like, dating, what a woman should be looking for. She's looking for a man and stuff like that. And he put as one of his, he just mentioned in his, I'm just reading a comment, church are hypocrites, all that gold in churches and still ask for money. Hell is a human construct to keep people in fear. Hell is a human construct to keep people in fear. Okay? Traumatized mind. Okay? But because you believe so much from when you were a kid, you don't even know that you're traumatized. You don't know that because you don't know any better. If it's been drummed into your head, if I smoke weed, I'm going to hell. You already believe that. You've trained your mind to think, if I don't give my offerings, I'm going to hell. This kind of thing. You're traumatized. Okay. If I date a Muslim person, I'm going to hell, or I'm doing something against Allah. You've been traumatized to think these kind of things. It's been put on you. Okay. So back to what I was saying. Can't remember what I was even saying. So yeah, back to this guy who was giving dating advice to women. Yeah. And he said, he was bringing up this thing, soul ties. I think a lot of us have heard this thing that keeps getting preached. Soul ties, soul ties, soul ties. Soul ties are so hard to get rid of. When you sleep with somebody, their spirit is attached to you and you can't get them off. And, they have, demons kind of chasing after you and stuff like that after you sleep with somebody or whatever, right? And again, I think a lot of churches, I don't know about a lot of other religions, but I know a lot of churches, because coming from a Christian perspective, a lot of churches traumatize people with this soul tie notion. And I'm not saying that soul ties do not exist, or I'm not saying they do or whatever. At the end of the day, what I'm talking about is the trauma that you're traumatizing people in fear of something they can't even see, this woman actually commented on this. This is very traumatizing for a survivor or a victim of sexual abuse. You're telling that person who's suffered sexual abuse that the demon of the person that took advantage of them is lurking around and, constantly going to be around them forever and ever, and they cannot break free. Do you know how traumatizing that is? That is going to lead to so much anxiety in that victim's life, because even though emotionally they thought they got over it, they're in this institution now that keeps drumming on your soul ties, soul ties, soul ties. Trauma. It is traumatizing to hear those kind of things, I've been traumatized by religion. And just back to what I was saying about this us and them situation, you can't be with Muslims. You shouldn't make friends with people who are not Muslim. You shouldn't make friends with people. You should stick with people who are only in the church, that kind of thing. Only stay with people who are in the youth group in church, us and them. And, I just don't think it's cool. I mean, I was actually dumped by somebody. Yeah. I was actually dating somebody. Everything was going well. And then all of a sudden, the person comes in and is like, you know what? We can't date anymore because, you don't believe. Because I don't believe in Jesus Christ, this relationship has to end. And I was like, what? How does that, I see everybody as a human being first. I don't care about all these stickers that have been put on you by your parents, by society, by this, by that, by this, by that. I don't believe in all these kind of labels that have been put on you. So I think it's very, I'll be talking about my next podcast on being a single mom. It's really hot for some reason. I'll be talking on my next podcast about being a single mom. And I basically say in that podcast, I want to be seen as a human being first. I want to be seen as a woman first. I want to be judged as a woman first, right? And not a single mother, with this label on me. So I felt like this person who had dumped me was not seeing me as an individual, seeing me as a woman. What qualities and values do I have? What do you like about me as a person? But you're seeing me as something that I'm not. Okay, because you're not a religious person or something like that, you're not enough. Basically, you're not enough. You can't sit with us, you can't date me because you don't believe in Jesus, that kind of thing. And it's kind of that us and them attitude that I don't want to go into the world. I want to love people. I want to love everybody. I don't want, my mission on this earth is to heal the brokenhearted, kind of in a way, but I'm here for everybody. I'm not here for to cut myself off and say, oh yeah, I'm only a person that's here for religious people, or I'm not going to be friends with people who are Muslims, or I'm not going to date somebody who's Jewish or whatever, because that means I'm not seeing them for who they are as a person. I'm seeing them for the labels that their family has put on them, because they may just be Jewish because the generation before, the generation before, the generation before, the generation before, the faith has been passed down generations, okay? You don't know. A person could have just given your grandparents this religion and say, okay, you know what, practice this. You don't know that any of this is really true. The only reason that you believe this is because it's been handed down generations. So you, as a child, have had no other knowledge of anything else. That is why this is what you've been told. And I don't want to be judged based on what my family has taught me, or because I've grown up in one religion or I haven't grown up in another religion. I want to be judged based on my humanity, who I am as a person, who I am as a woman. I want to be judged on that, and not my labels, whether I'm a Muslim or not, whether I'm divorced or not, whether I'm, this, that, and the other, that kind of thing. I don't want to be judged about that. And I would not judge somebody based on, you know, what they do believe or don't believe, because that's making me put limitations on myself to see that person for who they really are. So I gotta pick up my daughter from school now, but I will be talking a bit more about the I will be talking a little bit more about the single mother label a bit later, but I just wanted to have a bit of a talk about religious trauma and how it can really be very detrimental to survivors of religious abuse. I've had members of in my actual family say to me, well, why don't you believe? Why don't you believe? That's not very good. You should believe. Well, why should I? Why? Tell me why I should. Tell me, you know? If something is not based on concrete evidence or whatever, or even forget about all of that, yeah? What I was saying is that I have been traumatized, okay? I've been traumatized. I'm not coming from a perspective of atheism where I've never believed anything in the world or whatever, or from my religion. I have actually believed this stuff. I have actually digested this stuff. I have actually followed this stuff, okay? Now that I'm traumatized, for good reason, by the way, you're putting me down and saying, you know, I think somebody in my family was playing gospel music one time and I told them, could you turn that off, please? You know, it was a bit of a trigger, I can't lie, you know, so I said to them, could you turn that off? And they were like, oh, you're a devil, or something like that. I'm like, how am I a devil? Because I don't want to listen to gospel music. Like, I do like gospel music, I can listen to it, but just like not all the time. Maybe that particular one I didn't like. But you see how victims of religious trauma can be traumatized all over again. You're telling them about soul ties. You're telling them that you can't date them. You're telling them that, you know, they're not good enough. You know, you can't sit with us, kind of thing. And it's really traumatizing. It's not going to fix the problem by just moving on to another institution or moving on to another religion or moving on. It doesn't work like that. You know, if you're traumatized, you need to remove yourself from the actual situation and heal. You know, that is the most important thing for you to do. Okay, not jumping back into the same situation because you feel guilty or you've got that fear of, you know, going to hell kind of thing, you know. Another thing that annoys me is when people try and talk about their trauma, religious trauma, the clap back from that institution. You may have been going to, you know, a specific yoga class. Now you speak out about the yogi master who abused you, and everybody else in that yoga class turns on you. No, that didn't happen. She's lying. He would never do that. You see that in a lot of these churches as well. The pastor's been doing stuff to you, okay? Being sexually abusing you or whatever, or extorts you out of money or tells you to take out loans, and people clap back at the person. You're lying. You're just trying to tear down the church. You're just trying to do this, trying to do that. Like, why are victims not being believed? Nobody's trying to deliberately tear down the church or the mosque or the institution that you're involved in, okay? It's time we start believing people that are actually telling the truth, because it's so traumatizing to actually speak your truth and tell your truth, and people turn around and tell you that you're lying. Do you understand? This is how a lot of suicides take place, because it's like, you know what? If nobody believes me, if there's nobody for me in this world, then I might as well come out of it, you know? So it's so detrimental to just, you know, have this, you know, tunnel vision of protecting religious leaders. Let's protect them at all costs. Let's ignore all the sexual abuse. Let's ignore all the financial abuse. Let's ignore all the psychological abuse, and let's protect them. You know, oh, this reverend would never do this. This priest would never do that. That, and we close our eyes to all the abuse that's actually happening right in front of our faces, because we're too interested in protecting the perpetrators who are going under the guise of spiritual leaders. Let's stop doing that. Let's go in there, open our eyes, and help victims that are going through religious trauma. It's a real thing, okay? There's lots of triggers, and it's not an easy thing to live with. So, bye for now.